Hey friends, before we dive into today's episode, I want to invite you to join the Faith Talk community. Subscribe to Faith Talk today and let's embark on this journey together to grow our faith and to grow a better understanding of our life because the truth will set us free. Hey friends, today we're going to be answering the question, why belief? Why does belief matter in our daily life? And what kind of belief system should we have? Well, I want to first ask you this question. When you first wake up in the morning, what do you do? What do you think about? Do you sit there meditating on the intent for your day? Or do you just live on your day aimlessly? If the latter is you, then today's episode is exactly for you. Because when we talk about belief, we talk about its importance and how it impacts our life. So why does belief matter? Well, life is nothing more than an accumulation of consequences that are resulted by the choices that we have made in the past. But how did we end up making those choices? In other words, what made us make those decisions? To understand our decision-making process, it's important for us to know the sequence of events that lead up to a decision. To make it easier to understand, let's look at the sequence of decision-making process in reverse order. Let's say that you decide on a company out of the numerous opportunities that are available. And it happened because you took action and you decided on that decision. But before you took that action, you probably made up your mind. Now, what made you made up that mind? It was probably based on the pros and cons and the benefits of that organization compared to the others. And it's most likely you made up your mind because you believed it was the right thing to do. Yes. You believed it was the right thing to do. And so to put everything together in the right order, the following is the sequence of our decision-making process. You have your belief. Your belief influences your mind. Your mind influences your choices and your actions, which brings consequences. And those consequences influence your life. In other words, your life is governed by the consequences. The consequences are governed by your choices or actions. Your choices are governed by your mind, and your mind is governed by your belief, which makes your belief the most powerful subject that impacts your life. Now that we covered the significant role of belief in our life, let's take a look at more scientific evidence that explains why belief matters. Chris Argyris, a professor at Yale School of Management and Harvard Business School, had a very interesting research on the role belief plays when it comes to decision making. He came up with this idea called the ladder of inference. Simply put, the ladder of inference describes the thinking process that we go through, usually without realizing it, to get from a fact to a decision or action. Now allow me to explain what that ladder is. Imagine that there's a ladder. At the very bottom of that ladder, we have facts and reality. At the top of the ladder, we have action or decision. This ladder represents the sequence that we go through inside of our head before we take any action. So, we start from facing realities or facts at the very bottom of the ladder of inference. From there, we experience these realities and facts selectively based on our beliefs and prior experience. We interpret what they mean, apply our existing assumptions sometimes without considering them, draw conclusion based on that interpreted facts and our assumptions, then develop beliefs based on these conclusions, and then finally take action that seem right because they are based on what we believe. If that sounded a little confusing, you just need to know that we see the world through the lens of our own belief and take action based on that belief. What we believe is what we get. And this could be problematic because if we are ignorant about our own belief and keep making wrong decisions in our life, we are destined to suffer. So what is belief? Where is it coming from? Does belief get governed by something else? I personally love this definition of belief by the United States National Library of Medicine, which is the world's largest medical library. They state, beliefs are basically the guiding principles in life that provide direction and meaning in life. Beliefs are the preset, organized filters to the perceptions of the world, external and internal. Beliefs are like internal commands to the brain as to how to represent what is happening. When we congruently believe something to be true. In the absence of beliefs or inability to tap into them, people feel disempowered. Wow. Beliefs are basically the guiding principles in life that provide direction and meaning in life. For those of you who have been reading the Bible, it sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? And so if you look at every single person in the Bible, they always start out with prayer because they know that by acknowledging their weakness and going to the Spirit, they're going to find answers. And it's the same thing for our lives. You know, our days are just repetition after repetition. We get up, we go to work or go to school and then come back home. And it's the same thing over and over again. And if you're like me, it gets tiring and it just gets boring to a certain point. And you lack motivation, right? And so this is where I go back to the Spirit and I pray and make sure the Spirit becomes the motivating factor in my life. Because when you go back to the Spirit and pray, you find purpose again, you find energy and you find joy in life that you've been missing on. And when you do that, it guides your action and your consequences to help you find and make clear choices. And you're happy about it and you're joyful about it. And you don't regret any of the choices that you make. And this is why the Spirit is important. And so let's look at more deeply the definition of belief and how we can let the Spirit guide our belief to lead us to a more fulfilling life. Provided that you admit the existence of the spiritual realm, the Bible has interesting thoughts on where our belief is coming from. In fact, this idea that what we believe is what we get has existed for at least 2,000 years. The Bible, specifically John chapter 16, verse 12 through 15, states that there's the Spirit of truth who will guide us into all the truth, and He will help us when we are trying to make the decision, any decision, to make the right decision. So let me explain to you what this means. It means that our belief is governed by our spirit. Let me give you a specific biblical example. Let's take Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve was told by God to not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That was the right spirit. And if they followed that spirit, their life would have flourished and they would have gotten everything that they needed in life. But rather, when the serpent came around and tried to tempt them, they were led into the wrong belief, and eventually they made the worst decision that they can do by eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then eventually what the consequence was the entrance of sin in our lives. So as you can see, the key to life is allowing the Spirit of truth to guide our belief, because the Spirit of truth will help us make the right decisions in our daily lives, which impacts our mind, choices, consequences, and most importantly, our life. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Let us know by writing a comment below what you think about today's episode and the idea. Subscribe to Faith Talk today, and we hope to share more ideas in the future.